Perfect. Hello there, sweetie. Karla here with episode 7 of Cacao with Karla, where I'm talking about shadow integration, psychedelics, plant medicine, all the stuff to help you integrate all of the parts of yourself into one beautiful, ginormously, don't give a fuck, powerful, whole ass self. That is you. All right. So, as stated in the title, I'm drinking some cacao right now as I talk to you folks. And I'm also just going to go ahead and drop my link into the comments because I did a thing this week. If you click on that link that I just posted, I have a bunch of my links in one fucking spot. So you may have noticed that I have only been hopping on here about once or twice a week, mostly for these shows because I have been very busy in the background doing all of the things and bubbling cauldrons and, making friends with dragons and having cacao with my shadows and talking to my future self and all of the things, consulting with the cards and consulting with my higher self. And honestly, I said all that, but really I've just been spending a fuck ton of time on Clubhouse. And also working, but also really spending a fuck ton of time on Clubhouse. So for those of you who don't know what Clubhouse is, it is considered a social media app. I don't really consider it a social media platform because there is no endless scrolling through people's photos. There's no ads. There's none of that stuff. It's just real-time connection, chat rooms, audio only with other people in real time. Nothing is recorded. Nothing is available for replay later. So if you're not tuning in and interacting in real time, it goes away forever. Into the abyss. So what that does is create a lot of really focused, in-depth conversation and connection. And to be honest, I have been someone who's been very addicted to Facebook over the last 8 or 6 years or so. And this was the first thing to really break my Facebook addiction into just mindlessly scrolling until I realized that my shoulders are hunched all the way up to my ears and my jaw's really tight and I'm sad and I'm angry and I'm trying to take on the world's problems and I'm externalizing all of my power. And speaking of personal power, I wanted to address something to us, not just you. By no means this what I'm going to say just directed at other people. I am included in this as well. But one of the reasons that for me as a content creator, as someone who is a solo entrepreneur, as someone who is really passionate about educating people about cacao and pasteurized chocolate, shadow work and all these other things, is that I've been stuck in my own little echo chamber, especially on Facebook, for a long time and amassing all of this knowledge and having all of these experiences. So even getting on here and doing lives, there's so many fucking things I can talk about to where sometimes I get, I feel a little bit paralyzed as to what to say, because when I have in the past, I've said, hey guys, I'm doing this shadow work thing, I'm doing this YouTube channel, ask me your questions. I heard crickets. And so I did a lot of guessing, I did a lot of beating around the bush, I did a lot of feels like I'm talking to a brick wall, and sure, there are some people who leave some really great comments, mostly my friends. And so I was just okay, I don't know if I'm just talking about the wrong things or if I'm not defining things enough or if I'm just a really boring person. I don't know what's happening. But then when I sat with it and I thought about it, I thought about all the times that I was scrolling through Facebook and I clicked on something and I was listening to someone's video for 5 seconds and got distracted and kept scrolling and oh yeah, I'm just going to add this to my watch later, going to add this to save later, I'm going to watch it later, I'm just going to watch the replay. And then 3 hours later, 400 posts later, my brain is fried and I'm just laying in my bed in this really catatonic state. So that's why I have been mostly on Clubhouse, is because instead of being able to consume a bunch of things that you're gonna digest and watch supposedly later, I'm connecting with people in real time. And because it's audio only, because it makes it a lot easier for people to, for you guys, even watching right now, to speak to me in real time without having to like type out a whole text and have like typos and shit come up. It's created this really, this feeling of real connection and being able to talk to people. Like the average time that I'm on Clubhouse in one discussion, not scrolling, but one discussion, is about 2 hours. I can't imagine doing a 2-hour live, to be honest, because to be frankly honest, I don't remember the last time that I watched a live video, even with how engaging any person or thing or valuable that some valuable thing that someone's sharing for 2 hours, because it's so, just gotta get that next hit and just keep scrolling, yo, just gotta keep scrolling, and then meh. So I also had like a talk with someone recently today that I invited to the app, and just so you guys know, or if you haven't already heard, for right now, Clubhouse is only available on iOS, on Apple devices, iPads, iPhones, and such, and that it, okay, no, that's not really what I wanted to share about. So one of the other things about why I've been like just so honed in on that and like kind of stepping away from Facebook as a platform is because there's no direct messaging on Clubhouse. So it's just very, very stripped down, bare bones kind of interaction. But you do have to link the only clickable links that you can add are an Instagram or a Twitter. So I've also been revamping my Instagram, and I don't really want a Twitter, so fuck that. But I had this conversation with someone earlier today of like, oh, well, I don't really want to link an Instagram account. I don't want to have an Instagram account. And this friend of mine was like, oh, like the big companies and the corporations and their greed and rah, rah, rah. And I was like, girl, if you want to lose out on like doing all of this work and adding all of this value to people and having all of these discussions and doing all this stuff and knowing that people are going to want to just click on a thing to easily contact you, but you're just going to make them have to pull out a pen and paper and write some shit down, make sure they actually don't misspell anything, and hope to find you in the future. So I was like, where is it that we talk about like, oh, Facebook is selling our information, and, you know, Instagram and like, both owned by Facebook, you know, how dare these big companies do this to us? Like, it's not cool, and I'm not going to use social media. And I understand that, but like, if you've used Google, like there's already a company buying and selling your data anyway. So to pretend that you live under a rock and you have a cell phone, I think is kind of flawed logic in the first place. And second of all, for people like me who don't buy your data, and I'm trying to provide value and ask questions, and people aren't answering or asking questions or giving feedback, you could see from a content and service provider's perspective why it's so sexy and interesting to not have to waste a lot of time and a lot of money guessing to what you want and what's going to make you stop scrolling, when they could just buy what you're searching and what you're looking at. And I'm not saying that that's right, but I am saying that even me included, I have been complicit in that system of like, oh, well, I just really want to be fed the thing and shown the person who's saying exactly what I want to hear, exactly when I want to hear it, saying exactly the way that whatever, instead of being very proactive in showing up and asking some fucking questions so that you can do your work of really, getting what it is that you want out of life, to be getting the mentorship that you want out of life, to be receiving whatever it is you want to fucking call into your life. You have to fucking ask. Otherwise, people are going to buy your shit and sell you things, and you're going to think it's so magical if they like somehow found you. But it's like, that's just from like a shadow work perspective of like, really having to take radical responsibility for your actions, radical responsibility for what you are feeding your energy into, what you're manifesting in your life, is the whole like tie-in that I wanted to bring into that. And I know that I like titled this, not fixing yourself, and there, I'm gonna get to that as well too, but I just wanted to preface all of that with my little Clubhouse rant. And, you know, honestly, for me, I've been able to shift and improve a lot of what I'm doing in my services and the wording and how I'm talking about it so that it is accessible to people, because people on there are talking to me in real time, which makes it, you know, a lot easier, and it's a lot less of a distracting of a platform. Okay, I've officially ended my rant on that. If you're still watching, bless your heart. So, so one of the other beautiful things about the explorations that I've been having is that I've been in contact and conversations with other people who have done a lot of shadow work, facilitate shadow work for other people like I do, and seeing how we have these different perspectives about shadow and what shadow is and how to do shadow work and the modalities that encompass that whole healing modality and just this overall healing path. And I realized that there's a lot of this like meditate and journal kind of thing that I kept hearing echoed around and around, where people would come, would ask these questions like, you know, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, what do I do? And largely the response was, oh, sit with yourself, meditate, and journal about it, which for me feels really fucking nebulous. And yes, like meditation is a wonderful tool, but if you're someone like me and you're kind of ADD and you can't sit still for longer than 2 seconds because you're on Facebook, and we've all been trained to just keep scrolling, and as soon as we get bored, we just like go for the next thing, it makes it really hard to meditate. And just to journal about something, it's like, how do you know how long to journal for? Like, how do you know you've like really hit something? What if that's boring too and you fucking hate journaling? So I have this really beautiful exercise that I have been using over the last 5 years. So again, I dropped my link in there earlier. So on the very, very first comment is my, it's kind of like a link tree, but I'm able to like, you know, name it whatever I want to name it. If you click on that, you are able to access a free shadow integration exercise that I use with my clients. I use this in ceremonies now for my shadow integration focused ceremonies. This particular guided journal exercise is gonna like uncover things like that for you. It's really gonna make things like click and fall into place, because even if you've gone to all of those like those personal development workshops and all these seminars are like, uncover your limiting beliefs and your fears. It's like, cool. Yeah, I know that at 11 years old, my mom told me that no, I would buy my paintings, and I had a wound around that. Like, just knowing that and this kind of like mental top-down approach to that doesn't really freaking work, which is why I bring the body aspect into it too. Because like, if you don't have your body in and your body's consent on board with your healing process, all of this top-down mental shit that we try to do, it doesn't stick, and it results in a lot of sabotage. It results in a lot of like slingshot kind of, or not slingshot, but just like kind of feeling like you're going forward and like being snapped back into a feeling of not having made any progress. Like despair can cause its own set of like downward spiral feelings. And so for me, like, that's why I incorporate the cacao. That's why I, you know, use the cacao to create really embodied feeling of safety in my body. And it feels different from anything else that I've sat with. It feels different from cannabis. It feels different from breath work, which, I mean, cacao actually just learned this week helps you helps your lungs expand more to take in actually more oxygen and do more of that transfer between oxygen and carbon dioxide and vice versa and all those things. So cacao really helps with breath work. So cool. And okay, I feel like I need to breathe. And really, this is the part where, like, if I were on Clubhouse, I would open the floor to like questions and like have a discussion and like really be targeted with what I'm saying, so that people who have these different views or questions can add to the conversation. But since this is a video and essentially a one-sided conversation for now, unless you decide to comment, I feel like the most important thing I can really drive home and say right now is to take a look at what you rail against, what you decry, and what you shame big business for, and like what the ways that you give away your power, or like, make something outside of yourself bad, but then also feed into that system. It's like, oh, Facebook sells our data, but you're still on Facebook. Or, oh, like, like I don't know, just like that was like my main my main example that I thought about earlier today, just from my conversation. I'm a very experiential person. I'm not really like, at least I don't see myself as someone who's just like good at the whole just mental plane. Like if I experience it, it's a lot easier for me to communicate it with other people. But I really just invite you to look at that. I invite you also to click on that link again and do that shadow integration exercise that I mentioned earlier, to start to have a really approachable, structured way of dredging up and bringing awareness and compassion to these parts of yourself that you may have thought that you got to the limiting belief, but really the limiting belief is up here, and there's a whole bunch of other things underneath it that are keeping your unconscious behaviors and what you're manifesting into your reality in place. So if you want to change what's happening out here, you have to not necessarily fix what's happening in here, but be aware of it, like on a really deep level. Love on it, have compassion for it, forgive yourself. Bring those parts of yourself that are living in the past and responding to past traumas with those old coping mechanisms, bring them into the present moment. Like, you have a lot more power than you think you do. You have a lot more power than you give yourself credit for. Trust me, you have way more power than you're giving yourself credit for. So take the first fucking step. Ask questions if you have questions. Do this exercise if you feel bad enough to do it. And start to just really question what you think you believe about yourself and what you think you have to do to be a good person. All right. With that, I wish you a wonderful, beautiful day, night, evening, wherever you are. Peace.